The Devil of Hell's Kitchen is back on our small screens. Daredevil Born Again is now streaming on Disney Plus Hotstar. It is the follow-up to the Netflix series, the 3 seasons of Daredevil that showed up on Netflix all those years ago. It's been 7 years since that series ended. And this, mind you, wasn't supposed to be a direct follow-up. It was supposed to be the standalone series on Disney Plus. I don't know whose idea that was. But they shot a whole bunch of that, realized it wasn't working, changed things up after the writers and actors strike. And what we have now, I dare say, surpasses the Netflix series. Do you agree, Bahir? Before you answer that, I remember the Netflix series with a bit of rose-tinted glasses, admittedly.
Yes.
Because when it came out, it was like nothing we'd ever had, and we were so excited. It was dark and gritty and violent, and the kind of Daredevil that Frank Miller imagined. And from the page, it had been translated to screen, and it had all those Catholic overtones and undertones and all this stuff going on, and it was the best depiction of the Kingpin that we've ever seen. We were fucking excited. And then season 2 and season 3 were also very good, but they were a little more of a slog, I felt. There is something about Born Again, and I cannot put my finger on what it is, because it is the same weightiness of that Netflix series, but it feels pacier, it feels better written, it moves with a real determination. It doesn't feel like there are any filler episodes. Like, these 9 episodes feel necessary, and all of them have this driving momentum. Like, I really wanted to click play on the next episode. Like, I'm not a binger, and this one made me want to binge it. Do you think it is better than Netflix?
I think it is definitely a lot easier to consume than the Netflix series was. I do agree with you in that Daredevil Born Again feels quicker. You don't have to set up a lot of characters, and I thought that the writers were very clever in not wasting time with that. 10 minutes at the beginning of it where you realize, oh wait, this world has not changed since I last saw them. The world has just kept going, and I've now just bumped into them, and it's the same characters all over, and I love that. I remember the Daredevil series as being very heavy, like Matt Murdock just like hating on himself, and it was just dark and heavy, and it just became hard to watch. I found that Born Again to be very easy to consume. I think there's a lot of people complaining that, oh, Disney's taking over, it's not going to be brutal and gritty and Frank Castle-y, and I think they're wrong. I think having seen it, all of the painful, disgusting, dirty, fighty bits are all there, but it's also just a brighter story to tell. I think it's not so much Matt Murdock within himself struggling with all these things. You mentioned Netflix's Daredevil to be a lot like Frank Miller's version. I'm seeing Daredevil Born Again as very much like the Daredevil I'm seeing in Chip Zdarsky's run, the current run of Daredevil comics. And I like that. I like that this Daredevil isn't... I'm not saying he's not layered or dealing with a lot, but he's not so moody.
But here's the thing, Matt Murdock is still conflicted. There is something that happens within the first 15 minutes of the first episode that sets the trajectory of the show in motion. And Matt Murdock is conflicted about being Daredevil. He's conflicted about leading that life of violence, as he's always been. However, there is a slight shift here. In the past, or at least in the past 3 seasons on Netflix, it had a lot to do with his religion. It had a lot to do with his Catholicism and how he felt about that versus the work that he did as Daredevil. In this one, the reasons are even more personal. I think that adds a different layer to his trajectory, and he is still moody, but there is some humor here, which wasn't there at all in the Netflix show. And I think that adds to the lightness of who Matt Murdock is. I think the character is depicted in a very interesting way. He isn't Marvel's broody, blind Batman. And I think that makes a difference.
Yeah.
And I think it helps that he has a real job and he's not just
Yeah.
a billionaire kind of cowering in his mansion all day.
Yeah.
In this one, he's a practicing lawyer and he has to go out and he has to interact with the world. And I think that's what I loved most about this show, because we saw Matt Murdock interacting with the world as a lawyer and not just as a superhero. Heck, many episodes pass before we see him in costume and you don't even notice. For me, that was how good the writing was, because I was still completely invested.
You're not waiting for the next Daredevil moment.
Correct. I'm happy with the Matt Murdock moments. And yes, I agree, this series does have an easier job because the 3 seasons before, like you said, Bahir, had set up a lot of stuff so they can pick it up from there. But I think the way they've picked it up and what they've done with the character and how they've chosen to tell this version of the story is very, very clever. I mean, at the heart of it, it is the story about Daredevil and Kingpin. And it is the story of their parallel lives, right? They're both very similar characters. They're cut from the same cloth, only one has chosen a path of evil and one has chosen a path of good. And if you follow the comics, you know where this is coming from because Wilson Fisk becomes mayor. And of course, you have no idea how serious he is about actually helping people or saving the city, or whether he's doing it for himself. And there is always this back and forth over whether or not he is a changed man. And I think what's interesting here is the way Vincent D'Onofrio plays him, because Vincent D'Onofrio himself is such a charming human being as a real person that you are left questioning whether Wilson Fisk can change. It's a very similar storyline to what happened in Captain America Brave New World, where you are asking yourself whether Thunderbolt Ross can change and become a different person, only I think this one does it with a lot more depth.
I found myself at times almost more interested in the Kingpin story. Sorry, I apologize. He's not Kingpin. He's Wilson Fisk.
Mayor Fisk.
Mayor Fisk. Yeah. And I found that to be very interesting. That there were times when what Fisk was saying rang truer to me than what Matt Murdock was saying. And I thought that was very interesting. When he was being dragged around to kiss babies and cut ribbons, and Wilson Fisk is just like, this is not what I signed up for. I want to do the job. Why is this pothole in the middle of the street still not fixed? Oh, we're waiting for permits. I'm the mayor. There's your permit. Fix the damn hole.
And I think that's why this series resonates so much, because yet again, it is a series that is coming out at a very interesting time in American politics. That is a super Trumpian thing to do, right? Oh, let's cut through the red tape. Fuck this bureaucracy. Government's holding you back. Look at me. I'm a billionaire developer. When I want to get things done, I get things done. It's the same with gangsters. That's how they work. And in that pothole scene, it's essentially the gangster getting out of his car going, all right, fill this up right now. I'm telling you to do it. Forget about the paperwork.
Is the guy in the white suit at the beginning of Godfather 2, sorry, who's going around getting apples from people and everybody's just sort of kissing his hand for respect. He's that guy.
And funnily enough, like this series too was written pre-Trump. However, it was built off what had happened before in American politics. And so its exploration of how someone like Wilson Fisk can become mayor of a city like New York is very astute. It's very true. And it's an interesting study on how people react. The series has a very interesting conceit as well. Apart from the Daredevil Kingpin stuff, there is this found footage, cell phone interview, citizen reporter thing going on, which cuts in at various points of an episode. And I think that is a really clever choice on the part of filmmakers to kind of address the politics of what is happening on the ground, given Daredevil is a street level hero. And as all of it comes to a boiling point at episode 9, everything starts to make sense, because those opinions on the street of people going, well, you know, I never liked the guy, but I voted for him anyway because he says he can get things done. Like all of that kind of comes to a head with what's going to happen in season 2, I think. So the way they've layered all of these elements in the build up to the big climax is very cool.
But also, I think that's important because I have not gone back to watch any of the earlier Daredevils, but
I can't remember anything.
But it always felt like, you know what it was? It always felt there was nobody else in Hell's Kitchen. It was Matt Murdock as Daredevil running around with Elektra, beating up ninjas, and Foggy's around during the day, and Karen's here at night sometimes. But it never felt like there was a real world outside. I feel like the vignettes that the directors have done, the way that the story writers have worked in this idea of a citizen journalist and how they're getting the air quotes pulse of the people. I like that because it reminds me that there's other people here. Like the Daredevil one, remember there were episodes and episodes and episodes where it was just the middle of the night somewhere and Matt Murdock walks into a sewer and beats people up, climbs through a building and into a warehouse and beats other people up with Punisher. It's just like, where's everybody else? And I like that this show, a lot of it takes place during the day, mind you, which is also very nice.
Yeah, which goes back to what I was saying earlier about Matt Murdock interacting with the real world. And the Kingpin interacting in the real world as well.
Yeah, he's got his own new set of generals to have to deal with, right?
Yeah, political aides as opposed to mob bosses.
Political aides, that's the word. Great.
Yeah, and it's crazy. And that's the thing, because I think it really draws a very stark line to your own politics. Because how you relate to these characters and their parallel lives might even speak to how you feel about the real world. Because there are certain moments when I'm reluctantly agreeing with the Kingpin because the system is so broken. And then on the other hand, you have Matt Murdock, who is the victim of a broken system, who keeps putting this blind, no pun intended, blind face into the broken system. And I thought that was really well drawn. Oh, it's such a good show.
It's such a good show.
I honestly think this is one of the strongest Marvel properties out of Disney Plus in a very long time. Like, this for me is on par with WandaVision, which remains like one of my favorite shows from Marvel TV.
Like, I'll be honest, it's just that WandaVision was almost accidentally so fucking good.
Right? Yeah.
You know what I mean? The rest of the stuff, they've not been anything bad. They're fine. They're entertaining. I'd watch them week to week, but then it's okay. I'll move on.
Secret Invasion, that was terrible.
Yeah, it's true. That was that. Yeah.
But otherwise,
I will say, I think my biggest concern, and this is a big concern because I love the Daredevil character, is the question of, will we only get 18 episodes?
I think this is what I miss about traditional network television, in that if a series was good and you felt you had more stories to tell, you could keep it going. In this interconnected media landscape, I'm not as thrilled with the idea of just having 18 episodes and then, hey, maybe we'll see him in a movie with Spider-Man. Yeah, I don't want that. I would like serialized televisual storytelling.
You want Arrow on TV, right? You want that. You
something
want this
I can
to
come
be
back
its own
to
thing.
week on week. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what Born Again does very well, in that it reminds you that Daredevil is a street level hero. And I love him as a street level hero. I don't want to see him fight the multiverse with Stephen Strange and Spider-Man and the new Falcon and Captain America. I don't care. I like Matt Murdock fighting Kingpin and Muse and whoever else that might show up in his little corner of New York City. I thought that's great. And that's where I want to keep it, right?
The other take that I would appreciate is if they just followed a straight up comic book approach of having these story arcs, and then when one arc ends, you can start another arc. And heck, you can even have different actors if you want in the future, etc., just like how you have different writers come in and do stuff. So the Born Again thing is one arc, just like how Frank Miller had that one arc. And Chip Zdarsky is doing another arc. And you're just telling multiple Daredevil stories, because there are a lot of great stories to do. It's kind of like what James Gunn is doing with lanterns, and then with the animated Lantern series, and then a Clayface movie. And I like that.
Yeah.
Maybe a Blue Beetle thing, maybe a Booster Gold thing. It's just tapping these interesting characters and finding cool stories to tell. Like, I'm happy with that as well. And if this happens to be a solid 18 episode story, I think I'd be happy with that.
No, I agree. Yeah.
And it looks like it's heading that way. There is a big thing that happens in episode 9 that sets up season 2. And I think it could be very interesting from both the superhero side and also the social, political commentary side.
Good stuff.
The first 2 episodes of Daredevil Born Again are now streaming on Disney Plus Hotstar. Watch it. We cannot recommend this highly enough. Let us know what you think. We're on Instagram on Goggler MY. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.